Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. And in just a moment, I'm going to answer a popular question about werewolves and the Innistrad Midnight Hunt commander decks. But before we get there, I want to tell you about something coming up really soon. This Sunday, August 15th, Card Kingdom and Mox Boarding House, fine purveyors of Magic product, are running an event called the Gauntlet. It's an event for charity that benefits Young Women Empowered, a fantastic organization. Now, we are sending a team to go compete in this event. It's made up of different game designers from all around the Seattle area, and they'll all be live streaming online. And we would really love your support. Now, one way you can support us is to tune in on Sunday as Magic luminaries like Mike Turian and Melissa Zatora take on all comers in board games. But the most meaningful way to get your support would be if you would donate to the charity in advance for us. Now, I've put a link in the description down below, as well as the top pinned comment you can go and check out to go to our page and click on the big button to donate right now. We would all really appreciate it. It's a great organization, and every little bit helps. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you there on Sunday. Now, let's get into the werewolves. Last week, we did a reveal stream with a bunch of Innistrad information. Sweet new creatures, some gorgeous basic lands, and Soren looking his very best. But there were two big questions I kept getting coming out of that stream. One, why doesn't Consider have Surveil? Which, by the way, I answered in a video earlier this week. Go check it out. But two, the two commander decks are called Coven Counters and Undead Unleashed. Why doesn't there seem to be a Werewolf Commander deck? After all, the set is called Midnight Hunt. It's got a werewolf as an expansion symbol. It's been said that that set has a bit more of a werewolf focus than normal Innistrad. Why not do a Werewolf Commander deck? Did the design team not get the memo? Well, there are a couple main reasons we didn't do a Werewolf Commander deck here. Let me explain. A lot of it is about the matter of including double-faced cards. When it comes to the reprints, unless you plan to very heavily lean on Werewolf Pack Leader and Greater Werewolf, you're going to want to use a bunch of double-faced cards. After all, in Innistrad block, that's traditionally been a key element of werewolves. Great, right? Well, you may or may not have noticed this before, but right now, we have never done a double-faced card in a commander deck. Why? Two primary reasons. The first is one of production. Now, our production team is amazing and has done a lot to unlock many things around double-faced cards for us. But it remains that printing double-faced cards is a tricky thing to do. And when producing a fixed deck product like a commander deck, if you put double-faced cards in there, and especially a lot of double-faced cards, it can not only be very challenging, but also create some restrictions on what you can do. And while not entirely impossible, and we have managed to get a few double-faced cards into things like the challenger decks, it adds complications. If we commit to doing a werewolf deck and then discover down the line that we can, for example, only use 10 double-faced cards, that's going to be a real problem. Second, it's one of extra materials. This might sound a little weird if you're a dedicated player who has been doing this for a while, but put yourself into the shoes of a new or very occasional player for a moment. Plenty of people buy these decks off the shelf and expect to play them without sleeves. For example, bringing the decks to a game night or weekend, or just buying one to play right away with friends at their house. You can't play double-faced cards without sleeves or checklist cards. Putting sleeves into the product is not really an option. We don't make sleeves. And if you use checklist cards, well, while one or two might be all right, imagine with a werewolf deck, cracking open your deck, having 30 checklist cards staring back at you, which, by the way, likely wouldn't even fit in the box as is. And then you have to mark all 30 of them down as the first thing you do, and then you have to try and play a game of Commander, which might even be your first game of Commander, given it's a precon with 30 checklist cards in your deck. That doesn't exactly create the best experience. Because of these things, we have kept double-faced cards out of Commander decks for the time being. Production and play experience are both big hurdles to overcome. I do think there will come a day where everything will align and we'll start including double-faced cards in commander decks in small quantities, especially given how many have been printed in the past year. But for now, we talked about it and doing it here was not a viable option. But I do want to note that even if those weren't issues at all, there are other reasons why we wouldn't necessarily do a werewolf deck. The Midnight Hunt main set has a lot of werewolves. The werewolves are definitely coming, and you are going to get plenty of cool goodies. One of the things we do with the commander decks is we use them to explore things in the set which didn't get blown out all the way for commander, and to relieve pressure from the main set. Before these set-aligned commander decks, if we wanted to explore a set theme for commander with, say, a legend, we needed to put that legend into the main set. A lot of the time, this worked out just fine, and tons of amazing commanders have come out of sets this way. But occasionally, we would get ourselves in a bit of a bind. We basically had two options: find room in the main set and make sure that card fits with every other format it needs to be in, or exclude it because there isn't room and deny the world that commander. The needs of the set across all formats have to win out here. If there's not room, there's not room. The new set commander decks do something very important. They give us a third option. They create a space for cards that are creatively tied to the main set and let us explore the themes of that set further without needing to worry about their standard implications or them getting crunched out of the set for space. For example, in Strixhaven, we saw some of the black-green life gain theme as a light part of the main set, but it could really get blown out in the associated commander deck. In Ikoria, we didn't have a commander for red, white, black humans, which were a light theme in the main set, but we could expand on it and give it a commander in the commander decks with Jirina Kudro. And while we do sometimes create decks built around main themes, like the Mutate deck in Ikoria, sometimes the main set has enough of the primary themes and good enough designs that the commander decks are the great place to focus on something else. For example, let's look at Kaldheim, our last 2-deck release. Kaldheim is a set where the main thing is snow. So did we do a snow deck? No. The main set had tons of snow already, and Yorn was going to be an excellent snow commander. Instead, commander could be a release valve to make sure there was a commander level legend for blue-white foretell and black-green elves. And while the main set did end up with Vega and Herald as uncommons to helm the limited archetypes, I think Raynar and Lathril do a much better job of commanding those archetypes. In this case, we have a set with tons of werewolves. And while almost everything else on Innistrad is still here, you saw Champion of the Perished, right? The spotlight on them is just a tad reduced. So touching on other themes in the commander decks with Coven counters and Undead Unleashed helps take some of the pressure off the expectations of the main set, helping make sure that most people can find the kind of thing they're hoping Innistrad will be somewhere. The good news, werewolf fans, is that the main set of Midnight Hunt has a ton of cool ones. And although I know you can't see them yet, it's just around the corner. Hang in there. There's a reason you haven't seen any yet, and we'll start showing them off soon. And speaking of upcoming stuff, if you're interested in everything in store for the next year of Magic, be sure to tune in on August 24th for Magic Showcase 2021. It's going to be big. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of why it's the case here, but also why we might not always choose the most obvious theme for a commander deck in the future. Sometimes we will, and sometimes we won't. It just depends from set to set. So with all of that said, what would you like to see in the Innistrad commander decks? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again on Friday. And in the meantime, may you have a lot of fun preparing to go back to Innistrad. You got this. So why isn't Surveil here in Innistrad on Consider? Well, first and foremost, Surveil isn't evergreen. There's a small list of evergreen mechanics like flying and first strike that can be used anywhere, any set, and any time. Whereas the vast majority of mechanics appear in the set they were released